Greetings everyone, I'm Michael and this is Credit Kuri, where we talk about credit finance and investments. In today's video, we're going to talk about the history of the credit card in America. American history of credit cards shows its earliest signs in the late 1800s, when stores began issuing paper loyalty cards that worked as lines of credit of sorts. In 1914, Western Union introduced a product called metal money, which turns out to be one of the first consumer credit cards. These metal plates essentially let consumers defer payments on some of the money they owed, similar to the credit cards and lines of credit we use today. In the 1920s, individual firms such as oil companies and hotel chains also began issuing lines of credit to consumers in various forms. Then in the 1930s, something called a charger plate came into circulation. Each charger plate was about 2.5 inches by 1.25 inch rectangular sheets of metal that were used to record information about a consumer, such as their name and where they lived. The consumer would also sign a small piece of paper as they used the charger plate to make purchases. According to the National Museum of American History, charger plates were developed as early as 1928 and used throughout the 1930s to 1950s. The birth of the modern credit card. The Diners Club card could be considered the first modern credit card in circulation, at least when it comes to the type of cards we know today. Seeing its success, a range of large financial institutions and other companies began issuing their own form of cards. American Express was reportedly one of the first major players to issue its own charge cards, which it did in 1952. Public interest was so substantial that American Express issued 250,000 of its cards before the official launch date, despite the card's high annual fee of $6 at the time. Bank of America also got into the credit card game with a product for the state of California that same year. Then in 1966, Bank of America card products were able to be licensed and used in other states, and the name was eventually changed to Visa. Many bank credit card plans that were first offered on a small scale or regional base became affiliated with major national bank chains, which meant that the credit card were no longer limited by location. In 1966, a group of competitors formed the Interbank Card Association, which ultimately became MasterCard International. The ICA worked together to introduce the Master Charge shortly after, which saw its name changed to MasterCard in 1979. MasterCard and Visa are the two biggest credit card networks in operation today, but there are also cards operating on the American Express and Discovery networks. Other banks and financial institutions also joined the credit card game, including Bank of America, Capital One, Chase, and Wells Fargo, to name a few of the biggest players in the market today. Invention of plastic cards and magnetic strips. American Express issued the first credit card made of plastic in 1959. The Diners Club began issuing plastic versions of its card in 1961. Credit card magnetic strips were created by IBM in the early 1960s as a means to store customer and transactional history and information. Introduction of EMV chip technology. EMV is short for EuroPay, MasterCard, and Visa. The EMV technology is what came after the magnetic strips. This secure payment technology was developed in 1994 and is still used today by top credit card, debit card, and prepaid card products. Essentially, EMV credit cards use a chip to store customer transaction data instead of a magnetic strip. Invention of credit scores. The earliest issues of credit cards and lines of credit didn't have any way to gauge a consumer's credit worthiness other than using their personal judgment and reputation of the borrower. The invention of the credit report and credit scores ultimately solved this problem. Modern credit reports list a range of information about consumers, including their balance owed, payment history, and other personal data. And today's credit scores are a 3-digit number meant to show banks and other lenders a digital representation of a consumer's credit history. According to FICO, the original version of credit scores came into being in the 1800s, as long ago as 1841. The Mercantile Agency, an early credit bureau for businesses that eventually became Duns and Bradstreet, began soliciting information about consumers in order to begin creating profiles that relate their individual characters and assets. Bill Fair and Earl Isaac created the first credit scoring system through the Fair-Isaac Company in 1956, but the modern FICO scoring system wasn't actually released to the public until 1989. There have been many iterations of FICO scoring since those early days, and many changes have come from them. Important credit card legislation. Over the years, a range of credit card legislations have helped shape the credit card market we know today. Most legislations were passed to protect consumers from predatory practices. Racism was rampant within the early days of the credit card industry, as detailed by the North Carolina Law Review. It took until 1974 for the Equal Credit Opportunity Act to prohibit race-based credit decisions, as well as practices requiring women to have a male co-signer to get a credit card. The credit card legislation passed in the last 50 years include the following. That was our video. We hope you got an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the history of credit cards. Do you use credit cards a lot? If so, please share the ones you use the most in the comments below. Thanks for watching and enjoy your day.